In Math 100, Math 110, and Math 140, um, quite frequently you must give answers in interval notation, using interval notation. And surprisingly, a lot of students have forgotten how to write things in interval notation. And so that's going to be a big problem when you get to the final exam, because answers to many problems, as you will see, because I've got practice final exams in Canvas, many of the multiple choice selections are in interval form. So this is actually a review. We should already know how to write stuff up in interval form. But I've made Lab 2 about interval notation. So we have a little bit of a review. So here's your Lab 2 instruction sheet. And basically, so here I've just got the examples in that lab. So remember, as per usual, all of the steps are written up in the lab instruction sheets, and these videos just go through the steps. So if you're having trouble with interval notation, there are three ways you can write answers: in set builder notation, or using a number line, or in interval notation or interval form. Now, this is the easiest one to see, number line, but because it's not something you can just type in from your keypad, it's not going to be used for you to input an answer or as one of the multiple choice selections. But we don't want to leave this middle step out, because if you're not used to interval notation, if you can get it in the number line notation, then you can read the number line off from left to right and get it into interval form. So let's see what we mean here. So here in this example, we just give a little bit of explanation of how you're writing something in set notation. So what does this mean? This means that x is a real number such that x is strictly greater than -2. Okay, so that's the set notation. And let's do the number line. What would that look like on the number line? Well, first of all, we need to find -2 on the number line. And now we look at this symbol. This symbol does not contain equality. X is all the numbers strictly greater than -2. So we're going to start at, but we are not going to include -2. So I'm hollowing that out. And then X is going to be everything that's greater than -2, that's to the right of -2. So what I've done here in red on the number line is saying exactly the same thing as what this set builder notation has said. Here, x is going to be any number in the red on this number line. And these two mean exactly the same thing, but it's just that if you're looking at this, there wouldn't be an easy way to type it. Now, in interval form, you look at the number line and read it off from left to right. So where are we going to start? We're going to start at -2, but as you can see, -2 is not included, so we will use a parenthesis. And then we look at the red line, and it is unbroken and continues on its way forever. And so going in the positive direction, it's positive infinity, and positive or negative infinity always has a parenthesis. You never use any other symbol but a parenthesis with positive or negative infinity. And that's our answer in interval form. So all three of these say the same thing, they just have different forms. Now in WebWork, if you were going to type this in, there's not an infinity symbol on your keypad. So you would type parenthesis minus a dash, a 2, a comma, and then just type infinity. Or sometimes, because WebWork is taken from many different textbooks, so they use different ways, you might be able to get away with it if you just type in inf. Quite frequently, they will have directions on what they want you to type for the symbol infinity. Sometimes they don't have directions. So more often than not, just type out the word infinity. If this is the answer, and you type this in and WebWorks is giving you an error message, then you've got to use that email instructor button, because I can tell if it wants you to type, say, INF, and they didn't include instructions. I can quickly clear something like that up. Okay. All right, so let's go on to some more. We can get rid of this one. All right, now we start with the set builder notation. What if you're told this? X is a number such that X is less than or equal to -2. How would you write that in interval form? Well, again, let's get it on the number line as a intermediate. So I'm going to need to find -2. And now you can see from the symbol, X is less than or equal to -2. So I'm going to start at -2, and because equality is included, I'm going to include -2, so I'm going to fill that in. And X is less than is to the left of -2 or equal to -2. And so now I'm going to want everything to the left of -2. And so what's in red, X can be any number in red on this number line. And again, here's your set builder notation, and there's the same thing depicted on a number line. They mean the same thing. Now to get to interval notation, or interval form, read it off from left to right on the number line. Well, on the number line, going from left, there is no left limit, so we're coming in from -infinity. This line is unbroken, and we stop at -2, but this time -2 is included. We must use a square bracket because it's included. And if you were going to write this in WebWork, type your answer in WebWork, you would type in a dash, then infinity, comma, -2, then you would type a square bracket. Okay. Okay, so now let's look at the next. Okay. What is this one saying? Let's see if we can get this in interval form if we're given the set builder notation. Well, if I was asked to put this in interval form, let's get it on the number line first. Okay. And I need to find -2 and +1. And I just need to quickly check that. Okay, there's my time clock. I was wondering where it went. Because I have -2 over here and +1. Now, I'm going to start at -2. You can see from the symbol, equality is included. So I'm going to start at -2, and because the symbol is less than or equal than here, I'm going to include -2. And then let's go to the other end, to the 1. We can see from the symbol here, equality is not included. So I am going to hollow out the 1. Now, X is anything between -2 and 1. But we can see from the symbols, the left endpoint is included, but the right endpoint, 1, is not. So x is going to be everything in between. So what I've drawn there in red is what x can be. X is any number in the red. And the set notation and the number line represent the same meaning. They're just different forms. But if you're asked to put it in interval form, then it's easy to read off the number line. So in interval form, going from left to right, I start at and I include -2. And then this is unbroken. And it ends at 1, but 1 is not included, so I must use a parenthesis. That is the interval notation. Okay. Okay, now I went from example 3 to example 5, so it looks like I might have skipped one. Okay, yeah. Let's do this example 4. So again, you can see all of these steps are in the lab instructions. Okay. So let me do this example 4. All right. Let's write this down in, the goal here is to write it in interval form, but let's get it into the number line first. Okay, now you can see there are 2 parts of this. So let's look at the first part. What would that look like? Well, we've just done it in the previous problem, in example 3. So this is the one that we've just now done. And so there's that part. But we have a second part. X is strictly greater than 3, so I need to find 3. And I'm going to start at, but I'm not going to include 3. And then x is everything to the right, where the arrow's pointing, of 3. So now I have the exact same thing in interval form. This is the set builder notation in the number line. This is a set builder notation. This is the number line form. Now, if I'm going to write it in interval form, I'm going to read the number line off from left to right. So the leftmost point is at -2, and I'm starting there, and I am including it. Then it's unbroken until I get to 1. 1 is where this section ends, and you can see 1 is not included. Then there is a gap, and we write a gap with a union symbol, which on your typewriter, on your keypad, you will just type in capital U. I think a lowercase u will work. I'm not sure. I always type in capital U. So if you use a lowercase u and it doesn't like it, then go back and retype capital U. I think it has to be capital U. So this gap here, where there's no red, is going to be represented by capital U. Then the second part, we're going to take it up again at 3. You can clearly see 3 is not included, so we use a parenthesis. And then there is nothing. It goes on forever. So it will not end. It'll keep going on for infinity. And plus or minus infinity are always used parentheses with them. And in WebWork, you would type in the square bracket, then the capital U, then 3, and then the word infinity, if you were typing this in as a WebWork answer. All right. Get rid of that. Let's go down to here. Okay, now, what's this one telling us? This is saying x can be any real number as long as it's not plus or minus 3. So in longhand, x can be anything as long as x is not -3 and x is not +3. That's what it is in longhand, but you'll never see it written like that. They'll write it in this shorthand. X is not equal to plus or minus 3. And that's what it means in longhand. but you won't see it like that. Now, what if you're asked to write that in interval notation? Get it on the number line, look at the number line, and then go from left to right. So we're going to need to find -3 and +3 on the number line, and then we're going to need to exclude them. X is not allowed to be -3. X is not allowed to be 3. And it can be anything else. So it's going to be everything else except -3 and +3. So X can be anything in the red. It's any red number on this number line. So this set builder notation and this number line are saying the same thing, represent the same thing. Now in interval notation, or in interval form, you take the number line and you read it from left to right. Now, coming in from the left, I'm coming in from -infinity. I go up, it's unbroken until I get to -3. -3 is not included, and I do have a gap here. It's just a point, but I have to skip over the -3. And then I'm going to have this area, and this area, this portion of the red line, is strictly between -3 and +3. And then I have to jump over, I have a gap just at +3. And then this piece of the line is everything to the right of 3. So if you were asked to put that into interval notation, this is what the interval notation would look like. And it is easier if you take this intermediate step and draw it on the number line and then read the number line off from left to right. And again, in WebWork, you would have to just type in infinity. Maybe inf will work. And capital U's for those gaps. And make sure you spell it correctly, because if you don't spell it correctly, that will be a mistake. Okay. All right, so there goes that one. This is much the same thing. This is saying X can be any number as long as it's not -3. It's not 1, and it's not 4. Okay, and so I hollow out -3. It's not allowed to be -3. It's not allowed to be 1. It's not allowed to be 4, but it can be anything else. So everything else. So X is any number except the ones that are listed. And now to write it in interval form, I go from left to right. I'm starting at coming in from -infinity up to, but not including -3, got to jump over it. There's a gap there. Then I want everything between -3 and +1, not allowed to be +1's, got to jump over it. Then I want everything between 1 and 4, not allowed to be 4, got to jump over that. And then I want everything to the right of 4. And then, of course, in WebWork, you just have to write in the word infinity. Okay, and then you would just copy that. Okay, all right. And finally, what about that? Well, there's 2 parts there. So do each part on the number line, and then to get it into interval form, okay, so let's do this part on the number line first. So I need to find -5. And what I've circled there says X is greater than or equal to -5. So I'm going to start by including -5. and x is going to be either equal to -5 or to the right. So where is the arrow going? To the right. That's that first part. Now, let's include the second part. X is also not allowed to be plus or minus 3. It's not allowed to be -3. Where is -3? It's somewhere to the right of 5. And it's also not allowed to be +3. So I have to hollow those out. It's not allowed to be -3, and it's not allowed to be +3. Now I have both parts. I've incorporated both parts into my number line. And now this set notation builder is the same, represents the same thing that I've drawn on the number line. Now, what is it in interval notation? You read the number line off from left to right. So, or in interval form, I'm going to start at from left to right -5, and it is included. Then it's unbroken until I get to -3. -3 is not included. There's a gap there. I got to jump over it. Then I want everything between -3 and +3. We do not include the endpoints. And then when I get to 3, I have to jump over that, so a union symbol. And because the parentheses there say it's not included, then I want everything to the right of 3. And in WebWork, you would type everything in the same as it is now, except where that infinity symbol is, you would write the word infinity. Use a capital U for the gap. And you would type. So all of that, your answer can be typed in from your keyboard. Okay. All right. And let's see. I think that's the end. That's everything. So this is in your Canvas. It has all of the steps on there. Okay, and that concludes this video.